He opened the door and threw my suitcase onto the porch. "You've stayed long enough, Mom. It's not your house anymore." I didn't say a word. My hands shook, but I picked up the suitcase. The zipper scratched my ankle as I lifted it. My shoes weren't even tied. Darren stood tall in the doorway, arms folded, jaw set like stone. Renata watched from behind him, arms crossed, lips tight, with something close to a smile. The porch light was still on, though it was just after 7 in the morning. I could hear someone mowing a lawn 2 houses down. A delivery truck rumbled past. Life went on. Mine had just been dragged out like last week's trash. "She's just taking up space," Darren muttered. Loud enough for the neighbor across the street to hear. Mr. Fenner paused mid-step, with his dog glanced over, then kept walking. No one asked questions. I had lived in that house for 34 years. I raised Darren in that living room, nursed my husband through chemo in that hallway, buried him last week. And now I was being walked out the front door like a squatter. My mouth was dry. I reached into my coat pocket for my phone, but it was still charging in the guest bedroom I no longer had access to. Renata stepped forward and handed me a manila envelope. "We had a locksmith come by this morning." "Just formalities." I took it. The locks had been changed before I even woke up. They didn't want a goodbye. They wanted closure, the kind that left nothing open behind it. I nodded once. Quiet. Tired. Humiliated. Then I stepped off the porch and walked down the front path, 1 foot in front of the other, past the flower bed I planted with my husband in 1998. The same bed they'd torn up last fall to make room for patio lights. A bus passed by, but I didn't get on it. I just kept walking, dragging the little suitcase with the broken wheel behind me. It clicked unevenly across the sidewalk, marking every foot I took away from the life I used to know. At the corner, I stopped. My chest hurt. Not from anger, from weight. Everything I had poured into that house, into that family, was now stacked behind a locked door, waiting to be repainted and resold. I kept going. 3 miles later, I found the boarding house. It was yellow, peeling. A thin woman in slippers opened the side door and gave me a key without asking anything more than my name. Room 4. No windows. A sink that dripped. A cot that creaked when I sat down. I put the suitcase in the corner and stared at it. I didn't cry. Not that day. I sat on the edge of the cot, hands on my knees, and thought about what I had left. Not much, but not nothing. I pulled my coat tighter and leaned back against the wall. The ceiling fan buzzed like it hated the silence. In my purse, under an old receipt, I felt the corner of something cold and plastic. It was a card. Faded. Scratched. I hadn't seen it in years. I pulled it out. My breath caught. On the back in my husband's handwriting, for Carmelinda. "When you need it most, Jay." I stared at it for a long time, and then I put it back in my purse and stood up. Because if he left me this, maybe he saw it coming. Maybe I wasn't as alone as they thought. So I headed to the bank. The gate clanged shut behind me. He didn't say a word, just locked it and walked off, keys jangling. I gripped the handle of my suitcase tighter. The wheel caught on a crack in the concrete. I dragged it anyway. Room 4, at the end of the hall. The door stuck when I tried to open it. I had to put my shoulder into it. Paint flaked off in my palm. The room was smaller than I remembered from the website. No window, no closet. Just a sink, a rusted metal cot, and a buzzing ceiling fan that sounded like it might fall. The smell hit me first. Mold. Sour laundry. Something old and forgotten. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped too fast, too deep. My knees bent sharply, and I had to grip the frame to stay upright. This was home now. I didn't unpack. I just opened the suitcase and let it sit. The only things inside, 2 blouses, 1 skirt, A thin sweater, my toothbrush a brush with missing bristles, and a half-used bar of soap wrapped in a towel. I'd packed in 15 minutes. Darren had made sure I knew the clock was ticking. He hadn't touched my things. He just waited by the door, arms folded, while I scrambled to find what I needed. I couldn't even remember if I grabbed my medication. My hands had trembled too much. I stood up, turned the faucet at the sink, and watched the brown water run clear. The pipes groaned like they didn't want to be disturbed. I washed my hands. The soap didn't lather much. The silence came next. Not peaceful, not soft. It was the kind that wraps around your ears and presses. I sat again, looked around. No pictures, no shelves, no table, no hook to hang a coat, just blank walls the color of spoiled milk. I wanted to scream. Instead, I laid back, pressed my palm to my mouth, and let it out in pieces. No sound. Just the shaking. The last time I cried like that was the night we brought Joseph home from the hospital, knowing he wouldn't leave again. That time he reached for my hand and said, "We had a good run, Mel." This time, there was no hand. Just a cot, a plastic lamp, and the sound of something dripping in the next room. I lay there for a long time, maybe an hour, maybe 3. When I sat up, my pillow was damp. I didn't have the strength to change it. I pulled out the envelope Renata had given me and opened it. 2 printouts. One from a locksmith. One from a lawyer. Transfer of possession. Eviction. By family agreement. My name wasn't even in bold. I folded the papers and shoved them back in. Then I reached for my purse and pulled out the card again. The plastic was warm from my hands. The handwriting on the back hadn't faded. For Carmelinda. When you need it most. J. I gripped it like it could speak. And maybe it could. The next morning, I dressed in the least wrinkled blouse, brushed my hair flat, and walked to the corner bus stop. I didn't know what I'd find, but I knew where I was going. I opened the lid and stirred the broth with a plastic spoon. It was thin, pale, lukewarm, but it was hot enough to hold. I sat on the folding chair legs, tucked phone propped against my knee. The chair creaked each time I shifted. The bowl steamed up my glasses. I took one sip, then another. It tasted like onion and water. No salt, no meat. I put the bowl down and opened Facebook. First photo, Renata in a bright dress, holding a mimosa, her arm around Darren's shoulder. Caption, 3 generations together again. Blessed. The second photo hit harder. They were all seated at the old oak table. My oak table. It still had the same scratch from when Darren slammed his toy truck into it when he was 7. My grandson sat in the high chair I bought. My daughter-in-law's parents were on either side, smiling wide. Her sister held a dessert platter like she'd made it. No sign of me, no mention. They posted 12 pictures, 1 video. In the video, Renata said, "This house is finally ours. Feels so light without the clutter, doesn't it?" She twirled in the living room. The new curtains were up. Beige, plain. The family photos were gone. My husband's armchair had disappeared. They showed off the renovation progress like I had never existed inside those walls. Like I was the clutter. I put the phone down and wiped my hands on my skirt. My thumb had started trembling again. I used to cook for those gatherings, used to set out napkins and heat the rolls just right. Now, I couldn't even afford the bread. The broth cooled. I picked the phone up again and checked the messages. Nothing from Darren. One group chat pinged his cousins sharing a joke. I clicked into it. One of them replied, "Is Aunt Mel okay? She hasn't posted since Mr. Roche's funeral." Darren responded, "She's fine. Took some time away. Needed rest." I stared at the words for a long time. He hadn't told anyone he kicked me out. He made it sound like I vanished by choice. I closed the app. The soup had gone cold. I carried it to the sink and poured it out. The drain gurgled, resisting. I pressed the faucet handle until the water pushed it all down. Back at the chair, I sat again, crossed my arms. Then I opened the drawer beside the bed and took out the card. Still there. Still warm. I slid it into my wallet, zipped the flap shut, and stood. If I wasn't in their pictures, if I wasn't even worth a name in their messages, then maybe I didn't need to stay part of their version of the story. Maybe it was time to start writing my own. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and headed back toward the bank. I pressed the card into the slot, entered my PIN, waited. Transaction declined. I tried again. Same message. I stared at the screen, heart thumping harder than it should have. That was the card tied to the joint account, mine and Joseph's. Opened the year Darren went off to college. We kept it active, paid the bills through it. Groceries, insurance, birthday gifts. It wasn't supposed to be empty. I went inside. The teller was young, polite, apologetic. She typed in my information, frowned, then typed again. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Roche. You've been removed as an account holder. The remaining balance is no longer linked to your name." I blinked. Removed. How there was a notarized transfer document submitted 3 days ago. "From your son." She turned her screen slightly toward me. Darren's signature. A scanned copy of a letter. He'd requested ownership of the joint account for streamlining estate transition. Streamlining. I walked out of the bank with my hands cold and my lips pressed so tight they hurt. At the bus stop, I sat on the bench and stared at nothing. People moved around me, shopping bags, coffee cups, keys jingling. Life moved. Mine had paused. I pulled out my phone. 1 bar of signal. I texted Darren. "Me. You took my name off the account," he replied fast. Darren. "You don't need much. It's better this way." Then another. Darren. "I'll make sure the basics are covered." The basics. Like I was a utility. I didn't answer. I sat there for a long time. The sun dropped lower. My fingers tightened around the phone like I might snap it in half. I had cooked for that boy every night until he left for college. Cut coupons, canceled vacations, took second shifts. And now I didn't need much. I rode the bus home, past our old grocery store, the one where Joseph used to count coins for a bottle of good red wine on Fridays. Inside the boarding house, I dropped my purse onto the cot and sat down slow. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I took out the old card. The one Joseph left me. The one with his handwriting. This one wasn't linked to Darren. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I picked up my bag again, because there was only one way to know what he'd really left behind. I marched back to the bank. No plan. No appointment. Just the card in my hand and a name on my tongue. "Joseph Roche," I told the teller. "I need to check this account." She hesitated. Took the card. Typed something. Her eyes changed. "1 moment, ma'am. Let me call someone." I waited. Stood still while the air conditioner blasted against my legs. A man in a gray vest came out a minute later and nodded at me. "Mrs. Roche, I'm the branch manager. Please come with me." His voice wasn't nervous, but it was careful. Measured. We walked down the hall to a side room. Frosted glass. Small table. 2 chairs. He shut the door. Locked it. I sat. He placed the card on the table between us. "Didn't touch it again. This was left by your husband." I nodded. I found it in my coat. I hadn't seen it in years, but his handwriting's on the back. He tucked it there himself, right before he got sick. The manager opened a folder, slid a paper across the table. I read the first line. Designated access. Carmelinda Roche account. Type private trust. Tier IV security instructions. To be activated only upon personal appearance with card present. Below that, Joseph's signature. Dated nearly 3 years ago. I covered my mouth. My fingers trembled against my lips. The manager slid another document across. Your husband set this up shortly after his diagnosis. You're the sole trustee and the sole beneficiary. I blinked. There's a second component, he said, something we're instructed to give you in person only if you arrived with this card. He opened a safe drawer beneath the table, pulled out a small lockbox. Inside was a safety deposit key, a list of property holdings, and a sealed envelope marked, "In case Darren forgets who raised him." I didn't touch it yet. I sat still, breathing shallow. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't breaking. It was changing. For months, I thought I had nothing. Turns out I had something Darren never expected me to find. Something Joseph had quietly built. It was never about the money. It was about not being erased. The manager gave me a calm look. There's also a safety deposit box in the vault. We can show you today if you're ready. I picked up the envelope, held it in both hands, then slipped it into my purse. I nodded. I'm ready. He shut the door, then locked it. Not rushed, not loud, just one quiet click that told me this wasn't routine. The young teller had gone pale when she saw the screen. Her fingers had hovered in the air before she turned to whisper something to the manager. That's when he came to fetch me. Now we sat across from each other in a small room, the kind with padded chairs and a pen on a chain. He picked up the card Joseph had left me, turned it in his fingers, noticed the scratch. His thumbs stopped on the writing. For Carmelinda, when you need it most. J. His face shifted. This card triggered an internal protocol, he said slowly. Not many accounts like this come through here. In fact, this is the only one I've seen in 15 years. He slid a printout across the table. Joseph Roche Private Tier 4 Trust Access Physical Card and Facial Confirmation. No online banking. No external alerts. The balance is, he paused, glanced at me significant. I didn't ask how much. Not yet. He leaned forward. Do you want to see what's inside the deposit box? I nodded. He stood. Bring your purse. We walked down a long hallway. One door led to a security room, the other to a vault. He keyed in a code, scanned his badge, then turned to me. Do you have the key from the envelope? I opened my purse and handed it over. He unlocked the box and slid it out. Inside a green folder, a small black flash drive, and a jewelry pouch tied in navy blue ribbon. I didn't touch anything at first. He closed the door behind us and gave me space. I opened the folder. Deed transfers. Multiple. 3 properties, none in Darren's name. All titled in mine. 1 in Vermont. 1 in Colorado. 1 right here in town. An apartment complex I never knew we owned. I set them aside and opened the pouch. Joseph's wedding band. And mine. He must have taken them off the night before he passed. I hadn't been able to find them. Thought the hospital lost them. I set the rings down and picked up the flash drive. On the label, Joseph had written, "Let her decide what to show." My hand gripped the edge of the table because he hadn't just saved money. He'd saved the truth. All of it. The manager came back inside. I can have a notary meet us in the next room if you'd like to start transferring assets into your name officially. I nodded. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was clinging to scraps. I felt like I had choices. I played the voicemail 3 times. The first time I blinked too much to hear it all. The second time I sat still and let every word sting. The third time I didn't move. I just memorized the tone. Renata's voice was smooth, casual, like she was talking to a co-worker, not her husband's mother. "Hi, Carmelinda," she began. "I just wanted to let you know we've started the demo. Darren and I agreed the kitchen needs to be modernized before the listing goes live. Those cabinets were really dated. Listing, not living." I paused the recording, rewound, pressed play again. Before the listing goes live. She wasn't updating the home. She was flipping it. She continued chirpy. You had your time in that house. You made your memories. We're making ours now. No hard feelings. Okay? There was a long breath at the end, like she thought she'd just closed a customer service ticket. I sat in the cot, staring at the peeling paint phone still in my hand. She didn't thank me for the years I paid the mortgage. She didn't mention Joseph's ashes tucked in the urn above the fireplace. She didn't even ask if I wanted anything before they gutted the place. They were erasing me. Quietly. Completely. That voice, her tone, it didn't sound like cruelty. It sounded like business. She didn't hate me. She just didn't care if I disappeared. I stood. My legs ached. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. Didn't feel hungry now. I pulled the green folder from my bag, spread out the property titles on the cot. Vermont, Colorado, and the apartment complex in our town. I flipped open the tab for the local one. 12 units, fully rented. Monthly income noted. Repairs scheduled. Joseph had handled it all behind the scenes. I looked at the address. I knew that block. I knew what I was going to do. I zipped the folder closed, slid it back in my bag, and picked up the flash drive next. It wasn't just assets Joseph left behind. It was leverage, proof, a backup plan crafted years ago. I slipped the drive into my coat pocket. And then I made a call. I dialed the number twice before hitting call. It rang 5 times. Then her voice, calm, smooth, unchanged, answered, "Hello, Anna. It's Carmelinda." Pause. Then, "Oh, Mel. It's been a while. I know, I need a favor." I heard a shift in her tone. Not warmer, just tighter. "Go on. I'm not asking for money. I just need a place to stay for a few days. Just until I figure things out." Another pause. Then a long, practiced sigh. "I'm sorry, Mel. I really am. But I can't get involved. I'm too old for drama. I've got my hands full with my grandkids. And, well, Darren's always been good to me. Good to her. He sent her gift cards twice a year and helped her get her AC fixed last spring. I remembered because I was the one who told him to do it. He's going through a lot right now," Anna added. "I'm sure they have their reasons." I swallowed hard. "You think I'm lying?" "Not lying. Just emotional. Grief makes things blurry. You know how it is." My hand gripped the edge of the table. "I buried my husband," I said, voice low. "And a week later, my son put me out like trash. I'm sorry, Mel, I really am." But she wasn't. She was uncomfortable. That's all. Uncomfortable enough to hang up within 10 seconds. She didn't even say goodbye. Just a soft take care and the line went dead. I stared at the phone. Not angry, not shocked. Just done. I'd tried to give people a chance. Let them hear the truth. Let them offer something back. But truth was too messy. And people liked their comfort more than they liked remembering who helped raise them. I stood up, took a breath, and opened the small notebook I'd brought from the bank. No more favors. No more asking. I underlined one address, the apartment complex Joseph left me. Then I circled another, a P.O. box linked to the trust. And then I made the second call. I walked into the credit union right at opening. The manager saw me and stood immediately. He didn't shake my hand, he just nodded, respectful, quiet. "This way," he said. "We've got it ready." He led me back into the small room, then down the hall to the vault. He unlocked the drawer. Inside sat the same box. He placed it gently on the table and stepped back. I opened the lid. Notebooks. Keys. Stock certificates. And at the bottom, one thick folder, labeled in Joseph's handwriting, "In case Darren ever forgets who raised him." I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened it. Inside, everything. Signed records from Joseph's personal accounts, copies of tuition payments for Darren's entire schooling, car titles, a copy of the deed to Darren's first apartment, bought under Joseph's name, transferred after graduation, even scanned receipts for the wedding, hotel blocks, catering. Notes in Joseph's handwriting beside each one. Paid in full. Let him focus on his future. Mel handled the flowers. Don't let her forget how beautiful they were. There was one receipt from the jewelry store. Engagement ring. $800, paid by check, 8/12/16. And next to it, he told Renata it was from his savings. Let him keep that story. My hands didn't shake. Not this time. Because it wasn't just proof. It was Joseph whispering from the grave, you did more than enough. And they know it. Tucked at the back was a notarized affidavit, signed 6 months before Joseph's death. If I'm gone, and Carmelinda is ever cast aside, know this, she carried this family farther than I ever could. Below that, the bank seal. I folded the documents back into the folder one by one. Then I locked it back inside the box. I looked at the manager. Do you have a lawyer you trust? He nodded. Good, I said. Tell him I'm ready. I signed the documents without hesitation. The attorney, a silver-haired man named Halprin, looked them over twice before speaking. You understand the full scope? Yes. You want to initiate, now I do. He nodded once. Then let's begin. We met in a quiet room above the credit union. No fanfare. Just his laptop, a printer and a folder marked Trust, Roche. He pulled out the final page of Joseph's will, a handwritten codicil, thick paper sealed in ink, notarized. I hadn't seen this part before. Halperin tapped the section gently with one finger. I assume you've read this already. I hadn't. Not fully. I'd seen the envelope, but not the clause itself. I leaned forward. Joseph's handwriting was neat, steady, as if he'd written it in one take. To my wife, Carmelinda, I leave control of the private trust to be used at her sole discretion, without interference or challenge. Should any heir of mine bring her public humiliation, exploit her finances, or cast her out of a shared home, said heir shall forfeit all claims to my estate, present and future. This codicil is final, not subject to appeal. Underneath his signature, the date, the notary seal. I ran my thumb along the edge of the paper. Halperin watched me quietly. He didn't rush. He wrote this 6 months before he passed, he said. Told me it wasn't about punishing Darren. It was about protecting you. I nodded. The room felt still, like time had stopped inside it. Can this be enforced? I asked. Fully, he said. The assets are already moved. The codicil just makes your authority absolute. If they try to challenge you in court, they lose everything. I breathed once deep and full. Send the letters, I said. He opened a folder labeled Notice of Revocation. 3 names printed. Darren Roche. Renata Martinez Roche. Renata's parents listed as pending co-investors. Halperin stamped each page, then handed me the pen. I signed slowly, carefully, one name at a time. He collected the pages. I'll file today. They'll be notified by courier, but I suspect they won't believe it until they see what's missing. They will, I said. Soon enough. He nodded. What about the house? I met his eyes. That comes next. I knocked twice on the glass before stepping in. Alonzo Graves looked up from his desk, then stood. He didn't smile. He simply nodded, walked around the desk and offered both hands. Mel. His voice hadn't changed. Still deep, steady, quiet like a chapel. He had buried Joseph's parents. Then Joseph. He'd drawn up their wills, notarized their trusts, handled every title deed from the first house to the last. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I wasn't sure you were still taking clients. I wasn't. But you're not a client. We sat. I pulled out the green folder, the flash drive, the codicil copy. He read everything slowly, said nothing for 20 minutes. Finally, he looked up. You're not here to ask for permission. No, I said. You're here to move. Yes. He tapped his pen twice against the edge of the table, then reached for his laptop. We'll start with ownership records. property titles. If Joseph kept his filings here, I can trace the chain of holding back 25 years. He typed fast, pulling up county records, asset logs, archived trust details. I watched each screen load. Deeds under shell LLCs. Trusts restructured after 2015. Co-signatories removed. Darren's name nowhere. Joseph knew what was coming, Alonzo said. He shielded everything before the cancer took hold. I nodded. He didn't want Darren touching any of it. He leaned back. Your name is on everything that matters. The house, the complex, the Vermont land. Joseph left you not just the pieces, but the map. He paused. You want to reclaim it, I want them out. He didn't flinch. Then we filed to revoke permissive tenancy. They never had ownership, just temporary residence. You can evict. They'll fight it. He smiled finally. And they'll lose. He printed the first packet. The letterhead read, Notice of revocation, unauthorized occupancy. I picked up the pen. And I signed. I hit play. Renata's voice filled the small room. Okay, so this will be the new dining area, she said, panning her phone across my kitchen. No, the kitchen. My cabinets were gone. The window curtains, the ones I sewed by hand, tossed. Walls stripped. Wood exposed. It's going to be so modern, all thanks to us. Her hand tilted the phone to show off Darren, grinning behind a dust mask, holding a crowbar like a trophy. I paused the video. I didn't shake. I didn't blink. I just stared. All thanks to us. No mention of the woman who paid off the mortgage, who scrubbed those tiles with vinegar and baking soda when Joseph got sick, who cut coupons for 7 years so Darren could go to college without a single loan in his name. I opened the desk drawer, pulled out the cease and desist template Halperin had emailed, and started filling in the blanks. RE unauthorized renovation and misuse of property. I typed slowly, with care, each word measured. I detailed the terms of the revocable tenancy, their legal status as temporary occupants, not owners. I listed the structural changes they had no right to authorize. I attached photos I had taken during a brief visit last year, before the flooring was ripped out, before the sink was replaced. At the bottom, I inserted a still from Renata's video, her face smug. My kitchen wrecked. Exhibit A. I printed 4 copies, signed each one, slid them into envelopes, one to their lawyer, one to Halperin, one to the county office prepped for record, and one for me. I tucked mine into the green folder. Outside, a horn blared. A delivery truck rumbled past the window, but I didn't flinch, because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the last thing they hear before the floor drops. I poured coffee. Steady hands. Light grip. The brunch table was too bright. Too cheerful. One of Renata's centerpieces. White lilies, gold foil leaves sat crooked next to the syrup jar. She smiled like a showroom host. Glad you made it, Carmelinda, she said, kissing the air near my cheek. I nodded. Sat. Smiled. Darren leaned over, refilling my mug like we were close again. Mom, it means a lot. Really. Renata slid a folder beside my plate. I know it's small, but Darren's been working so hard. We thought since you don't really use the Michigan place, it might make sense. Just a signature, Darren added. You'd still get updates, of course. We'll take good care of it. The Michigan property? The one Joseph bought in 1997. A tiny cottage, barely worth anything now. We used to stay there summers before Darren grew too cool for fishing. I smiled again. Opened the folder. 2 pages. Quick transfer. No hidden clauses. No backdoor access to the trust. Just a title change. I picked up the pen. Signed. Renata clapped softly. Thank you, Carmelinda. Seriously, you don't know how much this helps. Darren leaned back, all warmth and teeth. You're still the rock of this family. I nodded. But they didn't notice the green envelope I'd already mailed certified to the county office 10 hours earlier. Not for the Michigan place, for the main house, their real target. And by the time they found out, the real paperwork would be sealed, delivered, and irreversible. I sipped the coffee, swallowed hard. More eggs, Renata asked. I smiled. Just watching is enough. I walked up the driveway I once shoveled in winter. Music thudded from inside. Laughter spilled onto the lawn. The banner stretched across the porch read New Beginnings. The Roche Home Project. People hugged, toasted. A few wore shoes inside. I stepped in. No one greeted me. Not at first. I stood near the stairs as they passed me, glass in hand, mouths full of cheese cubes. Words I used to teach Darren bouncing off their tongues like they'd invented them. Then Renata saw me. She beamed, lifted her glass, and tapped it with a fork. Everyone quieted. She held the pause like a stage actress. We wouldn't be here, she said, without one very important person. Her eyes flicked to me, my mother-in-law. Some clapped. She worked hard, saved, sacrificed. And more than that, she knew when to step aside. Laughter, light but cruel. She made all of this possible, Renata added. So let's raise a glass to knowing your time, your place, and your limits. More laughter. Darren didn't even look at me. I smiled, lifted my glass, didn't drink. I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because every guest who toasted that lie had no idea they were clapping inside a home already stripped from them by signature and seal. I sipped once, swallowed. Renata moved on, and I walked slowly toward the back hallway, past the spot where Joseph's recliner used to sit. The air smelled like new varnish, but under it, the old house still breathed, still remembered, still belonged to me. I arrived 5 minutes early. The county title office smelled like toner and hand sanitizer, cold air, humming fluorescents, metal chairs. The receptionist barely looked up. Renata strutted in 10 minutes later. Heels, sharp voice, louder than needed. Hi, we're here to finish the transfer. Should be under Roche Mendoza Trust Parcel, 48A. Darren followed her in, adjusting his collar. Nervous energy. I waited until they reached the front counter. The clerk pulled up the record, blinking twice, confused. Then her eyebrows lifted. Excuse me. I stepped forward. This house, I said, voice firm, is not yours to sell. Renata turned, smirked. Oh, Carmelinda. No drama today, okay? I didn't look at her. I looked at the clerk, then pulled out the green folder. Here's the deed, I said. Filed under Joseph M. Roche Revocable Trust. Amended with codicil recorded 2 months before his death. Witnessed, notarized. I laid out the second document. Here's the clause. Any heir who humiliates or dispossesses me forfeits their right to inherit or transfer trust-held assets. Clause is final, irrevocable. Gasps behind us. Darren's voice cracked. Wait, what is this? And here I said, sliding the last page onto the counter is your wife's signature on a renovation contract. She had no legal authority to sign. She posted the footage herself. The clerk picked up the paper slowly, looked to her colleague. Can you call Ms. Langston in legal? Renata's face went still. Frozen. No rebuttal. Just open air. Her hands clenched around her phone. What is this? Darren tried to speak. Failed. I turned. I'll be filing for formal eviction by the end of the week, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. As trustee, I'm within full rights. You were never owners. You were guests. And now you're done. Silence. No reply. Just the whir of the copier and the sound of 100 quiet regrets. I filed the orders at 9:02 a.m. Water, gas, power, internet. All utilities tied to Renata's LLC. Every account listed under her renovation business name, the one she bragged about on camera. The one she used to sign contractor forms, supplier invoices, and glossy design mock-ups. By 2:00 p.m., the trucks had left the driveway. One contractor peeled off his vest and tossed it in the grass. Another muttered, "Not worth it," and drove off without a word. The noise stopped. No hammers, no saws, no music from inside the gutted kitchen, just the hollow thump of silence moving in. I walked the sidewalk that evening, stopped across the street. The porch lights didn't turn on. Darren stood by the side gate phone to his ear, pacing like a caged animal. Renata yelled something from inside, but the windows were closed. She didn't open the door. Not to me. Not to anyone. By nightfall, I received confirmation from Alonzo. "Transfer complete," he wrote. "Carmelinda Roche, sole trustee, sole beneficiary, sole title holder." Again. I set down the phone, lit a lamp, brewed a fresh pot of coffee. I didn't need to call them, didn't need to drive by again. Ownership wasn't a feeling anymore. It was a fact. Signed, filed, executed, and somehow, without a single scream, the world had flipped itself back over. I opened the door. Darren stood there, no swagger, no smirk, just sagging shoulders and a pale face, shirt wrinkled, eyes tired. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside. He walked in like a stranger, looked around the tiny kitchen. Didn't sit. I poured one black coffee, set it on the chip table. He stared at it. Didn't touch it. "I didn't know," he said. I didn't know the clause was that real." I didn't answer. He shifted, looked down at the floor. We got ahead of ourselves. Renata thought the trust would default to us. "You know eventually." Still nothing from me. He sat, finally. One hand around the mug, but he didn't drink. "It's just been hard, Mom." Mom? First time I'd heard that in months. He waited for sympathy. I let the silence settle between us. He pushed the mug slightly forward. "Is there anything left to fix?" I leaned back. "I think you already fixed it," I said. His mouth twitched. He looked around again like he was seeing the room for the first time. "It's so small," he muttered. I stood, opened the door. He took the hint, got up, walked past me, paused at the threshold. "I miss Dad," he said. Then he left. I closed the door, poured the untouched coffee down the sink. I woke to 15 missed calls. 2 from Alonzo, 1 from the bank. The rest unknown numbers I didn't return. The clip was already circulating by the time I opened my email. Renata, hair curled, makeup flawless, standing in front of one of my rental homes with a mic in hand. Historic charm. Fully paid off. No liens, no mortgages. Open for bidding this weekend. The video panned to the porch. My porch. Then cut to a man in a cheap blazer, shouting, "Bidding starts at 200. But I'd never listed the house. Never signed a thing. Never gave her access. She forged documents, fabricated permission, used her LLC to set up a fake auction under a shell buyer, and someone filmed it, and posted it, and tagged it. And by noon, it had over 300,000 views. By 2, Alonzo's office had filed an injunction. By 5, county records flagged her LLC for investigation. By nightfall, she was being booked for attempted real estate fraud. I didn't post, didn't comment, didn't gloat, but I watched. And for once, I saw her face without performance being led away in flats, no makeup, holding a jacket over her head. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark, not angry. Just done. I walked 3 blocks past the bank, turned left at the corner pharmacy, and reached the old brick building with the faded mural on the side. The women's shelter hadn't changed much. Still the same dented mailbox. Still the same security camera above the buzzer. I didn't ring. I slipped the envelope through the mail slot. No name, No return address. Inside one check, 6 figures. Signed, dated, final. I stepped back, waited. Nothing happened. No one came running out. No lights flicked on. No announcements made. That's how I wanted it. Joseph used to say, "You don't have to be seen to change something." So I walked. No purse, no phone, just my coat, my shoes, my steps. I passed a boy walking his dog, a teenager on a bike, a man fixing a fence. No one noticed me. That felt right, too. By the time I reached the main road, the wind had picked up. Cold, dry. I didn't stop, didn't check behind me, didn't wonder if the staff had opened the envelope yet. Because I'd already let it go, I opened the screen door, stepped out, sat down. The wood was warm under my hands, fresh paint, no dust, no rot. The porch had been rebuilt last month. Quietly, with people I trusted. People who showed up when they said they would. People I paid directly. No contractors who needed approval from Renata. No signatures from Darren. No backroom deals. Just mine. I set down the mug. White ceramic. A chip on the rim. Faded text across the side, still here. Coffee steamed gently in the morning air. No sugar, no cream, just strong and black. Like Joseph liked it. Like I learned to like it too. No footsteps upstairs, no slammed doors, no muffled laughter at my expense, only birds. Some wind in the grass, a neighbor's car starting then fading away. I closed my eyes, breathed in. The house behind me clean, silent, paid off, secured. No hands on it but mine. No voices claiming it but mine. No one coming through the gate who didn't belong. I didn't need more than this. Not a speech, not an apology. Not even the check I knew Darren had tried to send. I hadn't cashed it. I didn't need the money. I needed the morning, and the silence, and the mug warming both my hands.